A lovely good afternoon and welcome to the Real Talk with C and H, the podcast that promotes real talk and real growth. Today's topic is a very powerful one, and it being episode 5. Before we go to the topic at hand, I'll introduce myself. I'm the co-host Cyprian Katongo Jr. And as usual in this podcast, and I'll allow my co-host to introduce himself also.
Thank you very much and welcome back. My name is Hussein Dodia and I'm the co-host of Real Talk in CNH.
Today's topic, is a powerful one, in that we're looking at, leadership dilemmas and national development. Before I get to, Mr. Dodia's points, I think at this point it's important to give a brief context to what we'll be discussing. Leadership dilemmas, refers to, difficult choices, leaders must make, sometimes often involving conflict values, interests, or priorities in the context of national development. And just based on that brief context, and I'll allow my co-host, Mr. Doja, to just step in and also, shed more light on this topic at hand. Over to you, Mr. Doja.
Thank you very much, Mr. Katongo. And as the topic states, we're looking at leadership issues, and in this case, national development and how we can improve on our current situation. I would just like to start off with saying that, as you know from our previous episode, we had discussed a few of the issues that we're facing, but just a recap on that, we're looking at obviously skyrocketing prices, our fuel crisis, and the rate of the dollar. The rate of import of goods is quite high. There's also the issue of load shedding, which is quite persistent throughout the country and affecting a lot of businesses. So those are some of the issues that we'll be covering in this podcast.
Having looked at those issues, and allow my co-host in being in a position every time he has powerful points. Being a co-host, it's a very interesting situation whereby you learn also from your co-host. So at this particular time, I allow my co-host to break down these dilemmas which were outlined. So I allow my co-host to break down the dilemmas which he has mentioned. Over to you, Mr. Dodo.
Thank you, Mr. Katongo. From the very beginning, the basics, I would start with obviously electricity, transportation, and fuel, because these are the three aspects that I believe run an economy, that allow it to function, that allow it to grow, and that allow it to thrive. And I think it's very important that these issues are addressed first in any national setting, because then they allow people to thrive on their own without requesting handouts from the government, from private institutions, or state-owned parastatal enterprises. So I think it's important that we teach the fishermen how to fish instead of providing handouts and providing this sense of feeding people without them being able to feed themselves, because at some point it becomes a national disaster. You can only do it for so long, and it hits a precipice where you'll find that the poverty gap keeps widening, because then that support starts to dwindle, that safety net starts to begin to diminish, and as you know, people start losing jobs, they start losing their income, and quality and standard of living just deteriorates. So moving forward, I think I will start with obviously electricity, which is our most burdensome factor. And in my case, on my personal opinion, I believe we're south of the equator. There's a lot of sunlight. The first instance that comes to mind is obviously solar power. Solar fields have great capacity to generate large amounts of electricity, and if they are placed in strategic locations, for example, close to national power grids, then they're able to directly feed into the power grid. And this would also ramp up our electricity supply. I know that in the interim right now, we have made contracts with outsiders who are willing to supply power to our nation. But I think we should also be thinking more long term. Photovoltaic power, which comes from the sun, is very efficient, it's clean energy, and it can sustain our economy. We are not in a situation where we face snow and prolonged periods of cold weather and no sunlight. We have abundance of sunlight. So I think that's the first place we should start, where our strengths are. And God has given us this natural ability to create power from the sun. I would hand it over to you, Mr. Katongo, and maybe hear your thoughts.
Very powerful points there. Addressing the dilemmas which can affect the quality of leadership, like you have mentioned, the issue of not having power issues. So just to add on to your points also, the issue of also unemployment, I think, can also play a very important role when it comes to the dilemmas in the nation, when it comes to national development, in the sense that if people are not also well equipped with social programs which can enable them to also contribute effectively to their community and at the national level also, development-wise. So to just break it down, I think it's important also to government also to put in frameworks which can be effective. We understand that there is also CDF, which is constituency development funds, which are being put in place when it comes to helping communities. But at the end of the day, we see few getting that. In line with what Mr. Dodgy has said, if people are in a position of having such funds, being used, in terms of number one, equipping them with knowledge of how to make, for example, solar panels.
For sure.
And also how best they can also
Develop the skills.
Develop their skills. At the end of the day, we're going to see a situation where the issue of power can be addressed. At the same time, also empowerment. People who have income and also money will be circulating in our communities and national level, which also implies that the dilemma of government or a leader, in this instance we're talking about the president of Zambia, won't be forced to be doing many things at the same time looking at people's well-being. But if people have funds or resources to stabilize their living, at the end of the day, I think the dilemma will be addressed. And just to add on also on what Mr. Dodgy mentioned earlier, once something like this is put in place, addressing the issue of power, because now these days we're facing load shedding. If load shedding has been addressed, we're going to see now a ripple effect in terms of economical growth, which can be seen now on a larger scale. And at the end of the day, we'll see now that people enjoy being in the country and also being part of other development projects which government can also introduce, having established that people are already equipped with the resources and the knowledge on how to develop their communities up to national level. At this particular time, I also want Mr. Dodgy to bring in the other point. I know this point it's a very powerful one. We don't want to expand on it and make you people wonder, why are you focusing on this power issue? So allow Mr. Dodgy to step in, also give other dilemmas which a leader can face in the context of Zambia. Over to you, Mr. Dodgy.
No, definitely. Thank you very much. I also just wanted to add, before we move on to the next one, I mean, we are in the 21st century. It doesn't only have to rely on solar. There is thermonuclear energy. There are so many sources of energy.
Alternative
Yes,
resources,
yes, alternative
Energy.
energy resources. And I feel it's important for the Ministry of Energy, especially, in line maybe with green economy and environment, that can come up with these different aspects that can run different parts of the economy. I know we heavily rely on coal from Mamba Collieries, and I mean, that is good for the meantime, but in the long run, it will damage our climate, it will damage our environment. So we need to start thinking broader than hydroelectric power and thermal, using coal to produce energy. We should be looking at nuclear, thermonuclear. We can be looking at, like we said, solar, because these are renewable energy sources that are quite clean. Moving on to our next point that we're going to discuss is transport. Now I know there's road development that is happening, which is very good, and I mean, we need our roads. They're very important for the transit of goods and services from different parts of the country to other parts of the country. But I think it's also time that we focused on our railway system. Our railway system has been, would I say, stagnant for the past couple of years. But if we heavily invested in some sort of railway transit plan that links the 10 provinces of Zambia, almost like a spider web, it would allow us to firstly cheapen our transportation costs, and also at the same time reduce the price of goods and services that are reaching the markets. It would also allow farmers and those involved in producing these goods and services easy access to markets, which means they're able to just produce their goods, put them on the train station, and deliver them to whichever location is deemed necessary. There's also the safety aspect. We know there's so many road traffic accidents that happen on a daily basis. However, with a train system in place, a good train system in place, I believe this will help us reduce those sorts of accidents and provide a smooth flow of goods and services. And not only that, it could also help industrialize our economy. By having this efficient transport management system, it means other parts, remote parts of the country are able to develop just as well as Lusaka, just as well as the Copperbelt, and as well as the Northwestern Province, where we have Solwezi, which is now coming up. So I think a transport system, in terms of a railway system, would be very efficient in helping with national development. Over to you, Mr. Katongo. Maybe your thoughts as well.
I've loved those points, because at the end of the day, picking up from where I left off, in terms of issues like, rather, frameworks like, CDF are put in place and people have access to that, then they're developing. Also, having a good transport system, can also be a contributing factor in terms of rapid economic growth. And the points Mr. Dodgers alluded to, I think those are very powerful points. Having that also, the system of using trains, I think, can be instrumental in terms of cutting costs also, government also, and also the issues of accidents also, they can be addressed in that way. And also, people can benefit in the long run, not only today, later on in the years coming. Because at the end of the day, we are looking at long-term goals at the end of the day. Let me just add on these powerful points we're discussing here. Let me also bring in the dilemma of addressing corruption and governance. I know in the previous episode, we are looking at leadership attributes, ideology and governance. But today we won't dive deeper into that. We just look at the aspect of corruption. Having a system, everything is running properly in the nation. We also need to also address corruption. A leader should also put in also measures which can be effective in terms of making sure that people who are in charge, who have been put in charge, to run certain government departments are not corrupt Because at the end of the day, corruption is makes the nation stagnant at the end of the day, because the resources are being pocketed in a few selected people who are in government, and also officials in the wrong along the way. So I think corruption should also be put in place, also, addressed rather, when it comes to dilemma. One of the dilemmas which leadership can affect the leadership, the quality of leadership, and also in line with national development. At this particular time, I now allow Mr. Dodi also to step in, because like I said earlier on, I'm a co-host, and I love his the way he brings out his points. The co-host also learns every day. I'm not the only one who's learning today. So over to you, Mr. Dodi. Let's look at another dilemma of leadership dilemmas in terms of in the context of national development. Over to you, Mr. Dodi.
Definitely. I mean, well, like Mr. Katongo said, we're learning every day. I'm also learning. So if anyone out there has some contributions that they feel will be helpful, or maybe they feel I'm wrong in some aspects, you can always contribute to the show, and we will get back to you when we can. On the final aspect I would like to look at is obviously fuel. And I mean, this is a driving force of an economy. Just like electricity, just like transportation, I think fuel is one of the key pillars as well. And as you know, we have an issue where we have constant price changes month by month. Sometimes it's never stable. So when it comes to people who produce goods and services, when it comes to buyers and sellers of goods and services, their prices are constantly fluctuating. And this is not good for any economy, for any nation, because then there is no stability in our production. There is no stability in availability. There's no stability in business. So to address the fuel issue, and I know this is a sensitive topic that people tend to ignore, but I think it's important that we focus on Indeni. And the reason why I say this is because Indeni is a processing plant. It is able to process oil into fuel. And we have neighbors such as Angola who are producing oil, large quantities of oil, barrels and barrels, hundreds of thousands of barrels per day. In my mind, it doesn't make sense for Angola to be sending that oil all the way to the west, let it get processed, and then sent back as fuel to be sold. I mean, that is just cost overruns in my mind. Now, correct me if I'm wrong, but it's detrimental to any economy. And I mean, maybe Angola is benefiting through the sale of their oil, but they still have to buy that fuel. Their people still have to buy that fuel when it comes back. So you'll find that the cost is extremely high to do business, which then has a ripple effect, like Mr. Katongo says, on the people themselves. So I think it's important that we focus on building our industries. And Indeni is one of them, because it's the major industry that we have for processing of fuel. And I believe with that up and running, we will be able to have access to Angolan oil, or even local oil in some point if we discover it in some areas of the country. There's so many African countries that harness these natural resources. If there's a processing plant, here in Zambia, it would greatly help us reduce the cost of fuel, and that would in turn have a ripple effect on our economy, in allowing us to not only use this fuel within our country, but to also sell it abroad, or to our neighbors, to Zimbabwe, to South Africa, to those who are in need, And I know we have this Tazama pipeline that is what we use to bring in fuel into our country. And yes, things are working, but the thing is that it's getting harder and harder for us to do business, because we do not control the means of production. And that will always be the case. I mean, in my mind, logically, it is not possible to reduce the cost of producing something if you don't produce it yourself. I mean, it's to me, that's basic logic. However, if you're producing the, the required commodity within your country and able to control those factors of production through stable electricity, through efficient management, through cost cutting, then you're basically controlling your price of fuel. And yes, we have the international market price, we have all these issues to consider, but right now I think it's important that we think of ourselves and how we can better ourselves as a country, because the reliance of outside sources to determine the price of fuel becomes very difficult, because you must remember that these people are out to make money, right? Total, Puma, all these filling stations that we have around Zambia, they're not here to help us. They're here to make money, right? So yes, the government can subsidize certain issues, but it becomes very difficult when they can't subsidize it, right? And then, but if you're producing your own commodities, if you're producing your own fuels, it becomes very easy to manage those costs and those production measures. And I think that's where we need to start, is look at Indeni, see what we can do there. Depending on how much money we need to pump in, we push it in slowly and ensure that it's actually running. But the fact that it just stagnates and now has become a distributor of fuel instead of a producer, it means that we're basically doing the same thing, except that the institution that's doing it is now in our country, right? Yeah. I'll pass it over to you, Mr. Katongo.
Very powerful points there, Mr. Dodia. And also, let me add on the other dilemma in the context of Zambia, the issue of floods. So, I also think it's a very important issue, to bring into focus. Floods. I think floods. We can understand the causes of floods. I think poor drainage system and also people's attitudes in terms of how they dispose of garbage. At the end of the day, what councillors should also be in a position of running continuous programs, not just only waiting when rain season is about to approach. They should have, starting from when rain season ends, they should also introduce programs in their communities whereby people are educated, and also the cleanup starts from there. On the onset of rains, we don't face that situation, because at the end of the day, if floods persist, we're going to have a situation whereby school-going children, people in colleges who have roads which are bad to reach their destination, they're affected, and also people going for work, they're affected in that way. So the dilemma when it comes to leadership, I think should be addressed in the context of Zambia, starting with the ward councillors up to MPs. They shouldn't be waiting for the onset of rains. We understand there's a disaster management unit under the Vice President's office, but at the end of the day, we shouldn't wait for something bad to happen, then react. We should do it now. And the reason why I brought that aspect is very important, because at the end of the day, we're looking at the issues which are affecting Zambians.
Definitely.
Zambians need solutions at the end of the day. So just to recap on that point, continuous cleaning of garbage, also educating the people in the communities, and also if there are structures which are affecting the flow of water, there's no choice. They have to be demolished, because at the end of the day, we don't want to see a situation where there's continuous floods, and then at the end of the day, having floods, and then it will mean that there'll be prolonged load shedding at the end of the day. Because how can people switch on power when there's how can ZESCO in selected areas switch on power when there's floods? It means that people eventually will lose many lives at the end of the day. So I think a dilemma when it comes to national development, the flood issue should also be looked into in that area. Having said that, having looked at also the dilemmas which can affect national development, I want Mr. Dodia to break down how leaders can address these dilemmas. Because at the end of the day, we've broken down the dilemmas, different types of dilemmas. I know there are many, but the main important ones, I think, which are easily related to people who are listening, right now have been addressed briefly. But I'll allow Mr. Doty, to come in and also give his views, just outline the points which a leader can address his dilemmas when it comes to the context of national development. Over to you, Mr. Doty.
Thank you very much. To be honest with you, I feel that to address these issues is very simple. It's an issue of management of resources. I have the impression that we have this attitude of let someone else come and do it. Let someone else come and help us. Let someone else come and create this system for us. The truth is, it's not going to happen. People are going to see an opportunity in us, take advantage of it, and run away, because that is how businesses function. We need to start instilling in people the sense of accountability, the sense of responsibility. These resources belong to us. How do we effectively and efficiently manage them? And I think that's the basis of the problem. We need to be able to have some sort of plan, long-term plan, 20, 30, 50 years into the future, saying this is where we are and this is where we want to be. So once we have those strategies in line, it's easier for us to deal with these issues. I like the point that you had made regarding planning because of floods. That's very important. We need to be proactive instead of reactive. We need to be able to foresee circumstances before they occur. But we have this idea of just going along with the tide, and then when something happens, that is when we want to react. We need to start thinking differently now. We need to start looking into the future and saying, okay, what can we do now to ensure that our children have a good life, that are settled in a country where everything is affordable, with this constant supply of electricity, where we have good water supply, where transportation costs are at the bare minimum. I know there's this importance of investment and partnerships and cooperation, but I think we need to start looking at ourselves as well and start thinking, okay, are we doing enough for ourselves? Are we doing the best we can? And in my opinion, I don't feel that we are. I don't feel that we are taking the extra steps, the extra measures to ensure that our country is successful. It's very important that we start thinking that way and stop relying on some sort of messiah that is going to come and save us. Because the truth is that's not going to happen. What's going to happen is that messiah is going to take advantage of you. He's going to take advantage of your situation. He's going to take advantage of your ignorance. So it's very important that now we start developing those talents, those skills, the requisite skills that can focus and harness national development. Thank you very much, Mr. Katongo.
Just to step in, for those who have just joined the podcast right now, listening into it right now, welcome to Real Talk with C&H, podcast that promotes real talk and real growth. Today's topic is a very powerful one, in that we're looking at leadership dilemmas and also in the context of national development, and we have looked at the types of dilemmas which can affect the quality of leadership. And we have looked at the context of Zambia, issues of power deficit, and the solution was given, which was using alternative energy resources, and also issues of transportation. Mr. Doty powerfully outlined transportation. Another practical solution can be engaging also the use of trains, which will also cut off also at the end of the day, in the long run, also accidents, and the benefit of that being that the cost of doing business also will be less, and the economy also will improve, because people's goods are well delivered, and also just the community at large develops from there. And also looked at the issue of fuel. You mentioned to say government should also expand in then so that it can also have a processing plant. I mean that fuel can be processed in Zambia, and also that will also reduce in the long run also fuel prices in Zambia, and also Zambia be in a better position also to export that fuel. And we also looked at the states of our leaders can address some of these dilemmas which he has powerfully mentioned, which is adopting a collaborative leadership style, which means that the leader shouldn't be stagnant to wait for problems to happen and then be like, oh, waiting for a messiah. What can I solve? Shouldn't be that situation. So leaders just in general should adopt that collaborative leadership whereby they involve civil society, levels, civil leaders also in the communities, so that they sit down, educate the masses, and also provide long-term solutions, be it financial resources, and also just that knowledge to equip people, so that they know why development is very important, and also prioritizing issues which are of national interest, because you cannot focus on something happening in a different country and then you're forgetting the problems which are being affecting many people in Zambia. We mentioned also the issue of load shedding and also floods. So if issues based in Zambia are addressed, a leader can address those dilemmas, and also just developing strong leadership skills. You need to be strong, whatever challenges, which charismatic also in that. You shouldn't limit yourself. Things are bad. Obviously, with time, no, you should create out of that strong personality in terms of leadership, and also the aspect of fostering a culture of transparency and accountability. And Mr. Dodja mentioned there, if a leader is in a position of seeing to it that everything is being sorted out in the nation, there's no corruption, everything, the funds which are being spent in the context of national development, we're going to see that things will be moving in the country. And also, just to add on the consequences of having poor leadership in terms of national development, we're going to see a situation whereby there'll be the economy rather. It's so much sometimes, but you need to understand. Podcast is my son. When the economy is stagnant, when the economy is stagnant, from the onset, nothing will happen in the country. And also social unrest, people engage in criminal activities, and also disrupt other development projects which happen in the country, because people are saying that no, leadership is very poor in the nation. And also loss of trust, because people be like, why should we trust these people in power who are not delivering on their promises? So, and also the aspect of the environment also will be affected, because if people are not equipped with the resources and everything in the aspect of that aspect of flooding, to be even worse than that, the nation won't develop, so to say, or have more problems, so to say, diseases, to mention a few, cholera, malaria, in that sense. Also dysentery also can be added to that. So these are very serious issues. Having said that, I think these are very important issues that we thought with Mr. Dodja to discuss, so that you audience can understand that leadership dilemmas in the context of national development, these issues need to be addressed, and also given in a way that it's relatable to you listeners out there, and also having a realistic approach when it comes to addressing these issues, not just talking from without, and then just like we have mentioned earlier on. I'll pick up Mr. Dodja's points, waiting for a messiah. It shouldn't be that case. We should have leaders who are ready to solve problems which are being faced in the nation. Having said that, I'll give Mr. Dodia to recap what we have discussed and also give the conclusion of the topic at hand we have been discussing. Over to you, Mr. Dodia.
Definitely. Thank you, Mr. Katongo. I mean, I guess Mr. Katongo has mentioned everything, and I just want to close with saying that I feel these are the three pillars that we should focus on, as we mentioned, which were electricity, transportation, and fuel, because these three aspects help develop, build, and grow an economy. And with that being said, I would just like to encourage each and everyone to think about these things and think outside the box. As I said before, we're in the 21st century. There's so much technology coming out now. There's so many other means and ways of doing business, cheaper ways, more efficient ways, more effective ways. And I think this is the point that we should start thinking about those other avenues instead of sticking to the same roadmap that we've been using for the past 60 years. It's important that we evolve with the times and not be in a state of stagnation, because when you start to behave like that, you see that others begin to develop, and then you yourself are not developing, and you start to wonder why. It's because you're failing to evolve. You're failing to see the opportunities and take them. You're failing to avoid the mishaps. So it's very important that we're proactive, we're looking to the future, we're not thinking about the short term, but about the long-term development of our country. With that being said, thank you very much, and thank you for attending this show.
Have a blessed weekend, and join us for another powerful topic next week on episode 6. And we won't give you the hint, we just make you, be in suspense. Have a blessed day.